Trade titans, blazing trails. Trade titans never fail. Sharing wisdom, sharing truth. Building futures, raising roofs through challenges and victories. Innovation sets us free.
Welcome to Trade Titans, Entrepreneurship and AI, where we explore the intersection of business leadership and innovation. I'm your host, James, bringing you conversations with leaders who are shaping our business landscape. Today, I'm honored to welcome former mayor of Charlotte, Miss Jennifer Roberts. During her time in office, Mayor Roberts witnessed and guided Charlotte through remarkable business transformation and growth. She brings a unique perspective on how our city has evolved and where it's heading. Mayor Roberts, thank you for joining us today.
I am glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk to you. And so we're just going to get started off right away and talk a little bit about your time as mayor first, and then we'll talk a little bit about after being mayor and what you've done. So when you first joined up, what was your vision for Charlotte's business community during your time?
Well, one of the things that we knew when I was mayor, several things that we knew. We knew that we were too heavily focused on the finance industry. It really led to our growth after the 1986 interstate banking law that allowed banks to really grow their branch network. So we wanted to diversify. And we also knew that small businesses needed more support. We knew that we had some income inequality in our city and that parts of our city were struggling and parts were doing quite well. And we wanted to, as the public entity, help those that needed support because we have a lot of very creative and entrepreneurial people here. They come from all over the world. And they also move here from other parts of the United States because we're such a great place to live. And so we really had a vision for supporting the growth of those kinds of entrepreneurs, of folks who might not have as much access to capital just because of their credit history or the lack of training and support that the city could provide.
Gotcha. So I know many cities across America are all trying to compete for business and talent and bring it into their area. What do you think separates Charlotte from a lot of the other country?
Well, one of the things that we focused on while I was mayor and then even since, because we have a very strong local utility in Duke Power, Duke Energy. And we also know that we're in an energy transformation, that the market is moving to clean energy. We have a lot of information about climate change and how it's impacting the health of our citizens. And we've just had some major disasters from hurricanes and extreme weather. And so what we really envisioned was to diversify, not just in finance, but also in our energy sector. And so I can talk a little bit about how much innovation and entrepreneurship is going on in that energy sector, especially as we turn to clean energy. And it involves, jobs all up and down the supply chain, which is, I think, pretty exciting. I remember as mayor saying something like, we should be the center in this country for clean energy innovation. And, it was a big dream and all that. But I think that we are making some real progress there. And again, I think we're uniquely positioned for a lot of reasons that people do like to come to North Carolina and especially to Charlotte. First of all, it's a great place to live. The climate is moderate, in that moderate zone in the United States. We don't get as much extreme weather as other places. We have, pretty nice golfing weather year round. I hear some people say, I don't play golf, but a lot of people do.
We're a big golf state. I know that.
That's right. Absolutely. So we have, a great climate, easy access to recreational opportunities in the mountains and the ocean here in Charlotte, not a far drive to either one of those places. We are in a great location in terms of being along Interstate 85. A lot of trucking goes through there, supply chain. We have the airport. Our airport, I think, is the fifth largest in the country in terms of employment, which again makes it a great place for delivery, for intermodal access to goods and services. And so you combine that with a lower cost of living than some places, although Charlotte's getting up there. I must say, it's not what it used to be when I was growing up here.
It's because everybody's moving here.
Exactly. It is, it's the curse of success, right? So all of those things make it a great place to live. There are a few things that I'm still concerned about in talking about growth and bringing business here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to do a little advocacy for public education. because we know that if you look at the national average for teacher pay or investment per student, we are very, very low. We are like 48 and 49 in the country in terms of what we put into our public education system. We used to be the education state. We still have an amazing university system. UNC has 17 different campuses across the state, and they are another reason that we lead because we have great research. We have incredible opportunities. We are known to be one of the best state universities in the country, and yet our K through 12 has been underfunded. And so that's something I do think businesses care about when they move here. They want to make sure their employees have a great place for their kids to go to school. We don't want everybody having to go to private school. We want to make sure that public schools are supported as well. And I have a lot of friends who still have kids in the public schools, and they're great advocates, and they know the challenge when you can't get a math teacher because they are so easily hired by the private sector. Science teachers, same thing. We need those kids to be learning in the STEM fields to be able to continue our economic growth here in North Carolina. So that's my little plug for public education.
You've said a
Everyone
lot
needs
of
to.
things that I kind of want to touch on now. Going on to the education side, I own a few businesses, and I've interviewed people that have come in to do sales roles that moved here as teachers from another state that said, I can't afford to teach in North Carolina because I'm getting paid half for less than half of what I was making in another state. And I think that is probably the biggest issue is it's hard to get good teachers. It's hard to get teachers in general when you don't pay a fair wage to do that. That's what keeps us so far behind. And education is key to our country and our individual successes.
And I tell you, one of the challenges there has been that we have redirected money from the public schools into private vouchers. And those are, helping. We removed the income requirement for that. So those are helping people who could already afford private school to have a tax break. That takes money from the public schools. And also, if you think about a lot of rural counties don't have private schools. And so we're only concentrating that support in some of our urban districts to the wealthy. Whereas we have a lot of great small towns in North Carolina. We have a lot of great folks coming from those areas who are part of our workforce. They need great education too. And so people have this misconception that public school is, only for low income people. No, it should be for everyone. Again, we need to make sure that no matter where your company is located, your kids can go to a great school. And if you look at, I get the economic updates from the governor's office. And if you look at recent investments across the state, many of them are going into our rural counties because land is cheap, there's more space, they can build their manufacturing facility. But those are the counties that don't have great public schools for the employees. And as I said, I'm starting to hear from business leaders that we really need to support public education. So that's again, I think the foundation for everything. In fact, when I first got into public office, it was really because I saw less support for public education. I'm a proud graduate of East Mecklenburg High School. My kids went to public school, and I saw when I first ran for the Mecklenburg County Commission, people saying the schools were bloated. Well, as you said, if people can't afford to teach here, they're not bloated. They're being starved. And so I want to counter that disinformation every chance I get. And I continue to be a strong advocate for education.
Well, we appreciate that because education is key. I'm from Alabama, and we very similar issues down there when it comes to the education level. I think North Carolina and Alabama were two of the lower states. So I completely get it. I got lucky. I grew up in the capital city, and we had a little better education in our schools, but you go in some of the smaller towns and it's just not the same. And, I have tons of friends that I've asked, like, just in discussion, things that we've learned while we were in school, oddly enough. And it's just crazy what you hear and what you don't hear in education. So I'm very much so with you on that. I do want to kind of back up on energy real quick since we kind of jumped into that for a moment. In my last episode, I had a solar professional on, and we were just talking about solar energy in our country and how North Carolina is a little behind on solar as well compared to a lot of the other country. Maybe not the whole country, but a lot of the country. And, solar is probably one of the best ways to save our energy crisis that there is, besides changing our grid, which we need to do that too. There's I don't know where you stand on a lot of this, but I don't like wires being above ground. Who else does that besides America? Nobody. And the rate of loss of power in the power lines is why we have such high rates, really. I mean, if you're losing 90% of the power before it gets to your house, like what's happening to all that other energy that was produced? I mean, it had to get paid for too, right? So you're really paying for energy that you never actually used in the sense of because that's why the pricing's so high. More solar means hopefully less of that. And right now there's incentives there to do it. And who knows how long those are going to last? New administration might pull some of that out. Who knows yet? We just don't know what's going to happen in that world. But we do know that right now Duke Energy is giving credits for batteries and to be able to utilize those. So, and right now there is still federal funding. So I try to stress to people all the time, like, if you're going to do it now before these tariffs all come into place, because all these tariffs will affect solar industry more than anybody realizes, because the raw materials that are used to make solar, whether they're made here in America or not, still come from China. And, you can buy made in USA. People just still don't understand that we don't produce the raw materials. So, what do you think on solar in that area?
Well, and to follow up on several things you just said, absolutely, in terms of burying the lines, one of the things that we find when we have a big storm in Charlotte, because we're a city of trees, we end up with a lot of power outages, and that takes time and money. It can be, a vital service for hospitals and other things. And when trees fall, they often take power lines with them. We also saw in California that they believe a lot of those wildfires started by sparks from overhead power lines. So I'm all for burying them. I know it's a big upfront cost, but in the long run, it does saves money, saves lives, and saves some vital infrastructure. In terms of solar, absolutely, there are a lot of solar companies. There are a lot of people who are putting solar panels on their roof. We know that the city of Charlotte has 17 buildings with solar panels. Asheville, I think, has like 40 something. And we know that utility scale solar is increasing. The city of Charlotte is supporting, I think it's in Davidson County, part of their clean energy goals, which I started when I was mayor. They have what's called the Strategic Energy Action Plan, SEAP. We call it the CAP. They actually, if you go to the City of Charlotte website, they have a dashboard which shows the carbon emissions, shows their solar installations, shows their EV charging stations, and how they are doing with their goal to be zero carbon by, I think it's 2035 now, because they've had a challenge updating the EVs in the fleet. They've got a lot of cars. They've got 4,000 something vehicles, and that takes time to replace all that capital equipment.
Oh, yeah.
But they are investing in solar fields, utility scale solar that's not in Mecklenburg County, because there's cheaper land in other counties, and that's going to help them source most of in fact, all of the municipal energy from clean energy in just a few years. And so that is, one area. I do agree that it's hard. There are too many hurdles for residential solar right now. That's one of the things people can advocate with Duke Energy, with the General Assembly. We absolutely need to make it easier for homeowners, for small business, for churches to put solar panels on their roof. Now, our church used a incentive from Duke Energy when they still were doing it for nonprofits to help get solar panels. We do have solar panels on the parishioners hall in our church, and a number of churches are doing that. Again, part of supporting God's creation. They see reducing the carbon emissions, helping keep the air cleaner, et cetera, as part of their part.
There's actually, I hate to interrupt you, there's actually a new program or newer program that churches and stuff in North Carolina can use. And there's a few companies that are actually buying the solar for them and then leasing it back to them at a fair rate, to where they're still paying less than what they were paying before. They can save a little money, they can help the environment, and then they get the opportunity to buy those solar panels out years later if they would like, or they can just continue paying that payment. And I think what I'm seeing from that is it seems to be more beneficial for a lot of these nonprofit, groups that can't afford to put it up all at once up front. But if they could do something like this, they can still take advantage.
Absolutely. And we also have, so there are a lot of research groups that are supporting clean energy and solar. We have an industry association called the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, which works with solar installers, works with folks who are doing other innovative things like increasing the output by reducing friction in the transmission lines. There are some startups, some smaller companies that have been very successful in that, in some of the switching, because the grid also needs to be updated and needs to be able to transmit energy from wind and solar in a more efficient manner, because again, they can't be always right next to where you're using that energy. That's more true for wind. Solar, we're starting to get, a lot of solar closer to where it's being used. And again, you save on transmission when you do that. But there's a group called the Joules Accelerated, that's Joules Accelerator, which has frequent meetings of entrepreneurs in the energy space, the energy sector, and they can share information about programs that are available, about grants, about legislation they want to advocate for, and also network. So I've been to several of their meetings. They're always very inspiring because you hear all these great ideas that people have. And energy is a big sector. There's a whole bunch that goes in. Yeah. So the Joule Accelerator is one. The NC SEA, the Sustainable Energy Association, is one. The university has what's called the Energy Production and Infrastructure Center, EPIC, EPIC. I've been to several openings there of entrepreneurs who have worked with researchers to try to do innovative things around energy and sustainability. And a lot of those companies that start out at EPIC end up growing, getting equity investment, and launching from there. There's also a group called E2, which again is a collaboration of folks in the energy sector. So what we do well in Charlotte and North Carolina is collaborate. We're really good at networking.
That's my favorite thing to do. I'm a big collaborator. I have a solar business, but I also work with a few other solar companies, and I have a roofing business, and I work with several roofing companies. We work together and help each other out. And that's, to me, if you're not somebody that's willing to collaborate in business, you probably don't need to be in it anymore. Like, go find something else. Like, we're in that world of collaboration. We're in that world of helping each other out with, and if you can't jump on that board, you're going to end up one of those people that nobody likes. Like, there's more to life than just making money for your business, and you can make more money for your business if you collaborate. I don't think people get that. It's not about competition sometimes. For me, my only competitors are the ones out there doing the wrong things. I want to beat them. But as far as everybody else, I did want to throw something out on the solar. I have a friend that owns a solar company called Thompson and Sons. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They've been around almost 20 years. They are building a nonprofit sector of their business that focuses on all these dead systems that are out there. I don't know if you're aware, but Charlotte alone has like 40 or 50% of the solar is actually inactive that are on people's houses and on businesses because of, I'm sure you remember Pink Energy and Power Home and the scam solar people that came around. Well, because of them, for instance, I don't know if it's still like this for the Panthers, but the Panthers has solar and about 70% of their panels were not even working for like a year or two. They didn't even realize it till Thompson and Sons was able to reach out. And the idea behind what they're trying to do is they're fundraising from other organizations, banks, and hopefully the Panthers are going to come in on this. But the idea is to raise up the money to be able to send their people out to all these homes that don't have their solar active and get it active. A lot of people were sold solar and just never turned on.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a big thing right now in our area in North Carolina and really a lot of the country. But North Carolina, we got hit pretty hard. And that was another thing I wanted to bring up in this is not all solar companies are created equal, just like any other company. But solar is one of those companies that are businesses that has had this huge, massive, everybody just jumping in it and everybody wants a piece and not everybody is doing it right. So you don't want someone that's there to sell you. You want someone that's there to educate you because, in reality, solar, it's not a good option for everybody.
That is absolutely correct. And you are right about the scams. I remember getting several calls from, I won't say the name of the company, but clearly they had no idea that I've got too many trees over my house to really, because I had a company do a full analysis and they said, no, you got too many shade trees. I get that, which is again another great thing about Charlotte. But there was another company that kept calling, and I don't know how they got my number. But sure, I had no idea there were that many that were installed but never connected. And that's the kind of thing we need oversight from the government for. It pains me so much to see what's happening at the federal level, that we are firing the people who are the inspectors, who are the oversight, to make sure that the private sector does what it said it's going to do. So here in North Carolina, we do have an attorney general and we have a district attorney in Mecklenburg County, but we have an attorney general who is willing to make sure companies are doing what they're supposed to do. And I would encourage people to follow up if they find that out, because otherwise it's going to keep happening. And you're right, we had under the Biden administration, there was a lot of push for solar and a lot of programs that people didn't understand. And people are easily misled. We are a very trusting people. As part of our collaboration, right? We trust that people are going to do what they say they're going to do. We need to be a little more skeptical, maybe, but also we just need to have a way to report things and businesses that don't do what they're supposed to do, to make sure they don't continue to hurt other people. I've seen this particularly with the elderly, that they are often misled because so many things are new and different and complicated, and they are more trusting. And we really need to make sure that these things are getting reported. So if you have information on some of those companies that never connected, please send them to me. I'm happy to pass them on to people I know will do something about it.
Well, I know the two major ones have been outed and everybody knows about them.
Okay.
So
Good. It's
those
already happened.
they almost took down a financial institution in the process. So one thing about solar, a lot of people don't understand is, especially in financing, when you're, for homeowners financing solar, it used to be a lot less. But because of those energy companies, now the finance institutions have almost doubled what they call dealer fees. So, in order to finance something, you have to put 40 or 50% on top of it in the back end just to finance it now with solar because of all those issues. So unfortunately, the scam artists in the world are making it harder, which they usually do. But again, I just like to stress to everybody, reach out to somebody that has a good reputation. I can name quite a few here. We do solar. We partner with the company Zodiac Solar. They do a great job. Thompson and Sons does a great job. There's Carbon Recall. So those are a few companies of people that genuinely care, that I know will actually not just try to sell you, but help you find the right thing. And then we do solar shingles. So we have something a little different than
Nice.
the typical solar panel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so there's a lot of options
That's
out.
awesome. That's awesome. The city of Los Angeles has an ordinance for roof replacement, that if you are replacing a roof or building a new facility, it has to have either reflective tiles. They have a whole different requirement for how much it has to reflect because the city's getting so hot. And you can actually really help the temperature if you have reflective surfaces. So they have a ordinance, you have to use those reflective tiles or solar shingles. So that sounds like a great option. And some of those really look like just regular shingles these days.
Well,
They look great.
all shingles on the market nowadays have a little bit of solar reflectivity in them. The average is about 7% solar reflectivity. Then there's specialized solar reflective shingles that have around 20%. And then you have your actual solar shingles. So there's lots of options out there. When people look up solar shingles, depending on what they look up, they're going to find super expensive options, but there are options that are more comparable to solar panels and a new roof combo. So it's just research.
Yeah, I realize I'm singing your song because you have a roofing company. So there you go.
Yeah. I
You
think
know
they kind of
about
go
it.
hand in hand. You kind of want a roofing company to do your solar because you want them to work together on it. It's most solar people that just do solar don't know about roofing, and they might put solar on a roof that doesn't need it yet. You put it on a roof that's not ready for it, it's going to cause a leak, and then you're going to have more expensive problems. So you do want to make sure that's right too, which is part of my collaboration with these solar companies, is teaching them what to look for on the roofing side so that they don't make those mistakes. Because I see it too often, and I'm coming behind and replacing roofs and having to pull off the solar and put it back. The most expensive part of a solar installation is the actual install of the material, or taking off the material and putting it back is not far off from just installing new solar. So you might want to make sure your roof's in good condition so you don't have to pay for that. I'm gonna move out of the roofing real quick and move into a little technology and innovation. I'm curious on Charlotte's move into the technology sector versus, I know we're known for banking, but I'm just kind of curious where we are in that world.
Yeah. So obviously we can't compete with the Research Triangle because they've got the three major institutions: UNC Chapel Hill, Duke University, and North Carolina State University. However, UNC Charlotte has quite a bit going on as well. And of course, we have Davidson and Queens, which are smaller, but also producing some great students. But in terms of innovation and technology, because we're a banking center, we have really become a center for what they call FinTech, and that is technology related to the financial services industry. Clearly, you need a lot of cybersecurity, you need a lot of encryption, you need a lot of data storage, you need backup systems. There's quite a bit that goes into financial transactions. I worked for a bank for a few years. I know that you have to be really careful that there is a lot of money moving, and a lot of it is just through digital, credits and debits, and you have to make sure that those are all encrypted and protected. So fintech has become a bigger industry in Charlotte, and we all know Avid Exchange is one of the first ones to really grow here. They do a lot of credit card processing for some of the major credit card companies, and they have grown phenomenally. And also, they have been collaborative and trying to help with some smaller startups. There's so many apps out there now that you can use to pay things with, and so many ways on your phone. Everybody's paying for things with online ordering, etc. All of that requires good programming, requires people who understand the financial services industry and know how to use those checks and balances, and to make sure, as this industry grows, like you talked about with solar, so does the fraud, and so do people who are trying to steal your information and trying to drain things from your account. And so the encryption, the cybersecurity continues to be a need around that fintech. And obviously processing speeds are important, and the interbank collaboration, ability to work with smaller and larger banks and make those transactions seamless and quick and easy for the consumers to use. All of that is part of the technology that Charlotte is really becoming known for.
That's awesome. It's funny you mentioned Avid Exchange because I have a whole nother business. I actually develop and do AI software and integrations and automations for other trade businesses. Hence the podcast. We wanted to talk a little bit about technology and AI and what that can do too. And one of the people that was there at Avid Exchange for the very beginning for about 20 years, helped them grow and everything, is one of my business partners. So he has that experience of helping grow that company, and the stories are amazing what you hear on what it took to grow that company to where it is now. And I bring in the AI because, on this show, we often discuss emerging technologies, AI, where it's, what we're seeing happen. And I'm kind of curious on if Charlotte has had, I'm sure everybody's had AI discussed, but where Charlotte is in that world of AI.
Well, I know that a lot of companies are training their employees on ways to use AI in the correct way, things it can do, things that doesn't necessarily do well yet. And the need, of course, even with things like ChatGPT and other kind of
Excuse me.
and other AI that's working with writing and words and reports and that sort of thing, there still is a need for a human to review those kinds of AI. But there's also AI that's being used in everything from sales and marketing to processing, like I said, payments, to looking at shipping and supply chain, trying to make things more efficient. And even our medical industry is using AI. That's another big industry in Charlotte. We have two major hospitals. We have one that has just joined up with Wake Forest to become a teaching hospital. And there's going to be a lot of research. We are very well known for the Cancer Institute we have, the Heart Institute we have in some of these hospitals. And AI is important there. The challenge, and I know this because my son is working for one of those companies that does AI for doctors. He's actually located in Pittsburgh. But what they are doing is looking at ways to take huge data sets, because AI works really well when you have a whole bunch of data to train it. And the challenge in the medical industry is taking out the HIPAA information so that you're not violating anyone's privacy, but using the data to help do things like diagnose better, do reports of patient visits more accurately and more timely, even, working in different protein combinations and seeing in terms of infectious diseases what things work, and trying this through AI. And it's pretty amazing what all is happening in that area. So I would say, again, another industry, healthcare, that we haven't talked about, but is a growing one in Charlotte. And I think that our major hospital, Atrium, which also now has a new partner advocate, I think health is in, I think, 15 counties in our region. And we are seeing the strength of that ability to offer a lot of services to patients, but also to have that research function because we know that diseases and bacteria, et cetera, are evolving and becoming more of a challenge to humans, which is another reason that many people are very concerned about cuts to the National Institutes of Health, because a lot of this research has been funded by the federal government for the benefit of not just our country, but other countries that we collaborate with. So that is another interesting area for AI in our region. And again, my little advocacy plug is please keep funding the sciences because they're going to save us all.
Exactly. And just because AI is getting smarter doesn't mean we don't need smarter people. Actually, we should be utilizing that to make ourselves smart. And I agree. It's not here to replace jobs. It's here to actually create more work if used properly. Medical advances with AI are probably the best that's happened with AI so far is what they've been able to do with surgeries and stuff using AI with precision. So I think that's really interesting area. AI is just all over the place right now. And there's a new AI that just came out. It's not even actually officially released to the public yet. It's released as a demo. It's a new emotional voice AI that that sounds like a real human. And people that have been going on and testing it are like, I know this is an AI, but I actually get into an emotional, real conversation with it, knowing it's fake, but I'm still into it. The goal of this one is kind of to become a mental health assistant to help have people, you have so many people that don't leave their house or can't go do these, or maybe just don't want to talk to a real person about certain things. Well, you have this AI that can really be that assistant to actually have those conversations with. And I think being that we are in such a mental health crisis as a country, I think, and our state is not the greatest on that either. It's definitely a step towards making some things better. While I'm on mental health, have you ever heard of the Smith Family Foundation? I know he's going through a lot right now. We won't talk about that, but the organization itself does amazing things, and it's the first urgent care facility in North Carolina, from my understanding. It's an urgent care mental health facility. So it's completely free. Anybody with mental health issues can just go there, talk to someone, and they help get you external help. And they're seeing that police officers, they've had over 2,000 visits from police officers, I believe, in the past year, bringing people there instead of jail. And I think, I know I kind of just got off on the mental health, but it is one of our big issues here too. And I think having facilities like that pop up are amazing. And I just hope that can continue. We're doing a fundraiser for them. It's just kind of top of my mind right now.
Well, good for you. And absolutely, people don't recognize that the suicide rates are increasing. Particularly at risk are obviously veterans, but young men, because it is, it's so easy to be cyberbullied now. And people in high school, young men and young women, are getting cyberbullied, and it's not always easy to trace who's doing it. And there are just a lot of concerns with suicide rates. So if we don't have enough mental health providers, that is actually a fact. So if there is an AI you can talk to, that is someone to listen to, like a therapist, that's pretty good in terms of the empathy. I think it's hard to mirror a human empathy, but if there is a possibility for that, sure, I'm all for it.
You look it up when you get a chance. It's called sesame.com. And the thing that brought it to my mind is when you said it takes a lot of information to train an AI. They're the first ones to do it with a very little amount of information. It's almost mind-blowing that they were able to create something so powerful that's so small. And I think that's where AI is going now, is we're starting to look at creating smaller, more specific AIs that target particular issues. And because they can run faster and more efficiently when they're not too big, but they're more highly focused. And so it's an exciting world, and I think I'm excited to see where Charlotte goes on technology and how we move forward there. I know we have a lot of businesses in Charlotte using AI right now, and we hope to get a lot more going. I think the statistics are like 90-something% of businesses will be on AI by the end of this year in some way. People have AI in their mind as ChatGPT, but that's a very basic version of AI. There's a lot of stuff out there that people are now discovering and starting to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the key is not to be afraid, but to use it carefully and to really be trained on what it can and can't do.
Exactly. One few last quick fire questions for you. What piece of advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs in Charlotte?
Well, I would say find every place you can to connect and network. If you just go to the web, and there are all kinds of groups out there. There are groups for women, there are groups for small business, there are groups for food industry, for energy, for healthcare. I don't know how many chambers of commerce for the Regional Business Alliance there are, different parts of our city and our county. You can really find almost any kind of group, industry groups around veterinarians and pet care, which is also really important. We have a dog, and there are ways that you can connect. Charlotte's a good place to connect. That's what I would say is if you're just starting up and you're having a challenge getting clients, just be patient. Talk to a lot of people, see what they did, explore, focus on people that you think would be in that industry, that niche. You're going to find a lot of folks and a lot of support.
Good point. I think networking is key. And it's not just about getting leads when you network, but it's also about learning from people with those experiences and asking those questions. So yeah, that's a wonderful advice.
One last thing, video content on social media is really key. So if you are good at doing short videos about your product or your business, and you've got a good smile and you've got a good camera, do a short video, because that's really what gets shared and seen.
It's a good point. A lot of people don't know, but YouTube is actually the number one website in the world. It's the biggest and the most trafficked. If you're going to do something and promote yourself, YouTube's where you do it.
Absolutely.
Now, looking back at your service in Charlotte, what achievement for our business community are you most proud of, or for our community in general?
There are a number of things that I worked on as mayor. As I mentioned, clean energy, the whole public awareness of environmental injustice, but also ways that we can move forward on clean energy, on reducing our carbon footprint, on making our community more sustainable, not just, in energy production, but also in things like recycling and green infrastructure and cooling areas. That's one thing that I really supported when I was mayor. And the other one is inclusion and support for all the variety of people that we have in our community, all the variety of ideas, of ideologies, of people from different countries, to actually support and to celebrate that. Because what I found when people come and speak to us from different communities, there are a lot of great ideas that if you grew up in one little area in Charlotte, you may not have thought about, because someone from a different background may have a better solution because they've thought about things differently and grew up in a different place. So I think also around that inclusion, the third thing would be education. The city doesn't do anything for the school system, but they do have an after school area of support and workforce support and mentoring. And so the Mayor's Mentoring Alliance is something I really cared about, try to get young people connected to professionals to look at their future, give them a career path, and also supporting after school programs, because one of the things that separates low income from high income schools is the enrichment that happens after school, the music lessons, the sports, the arts, the even tutoring, all these things where some folks have access and some folks don't. And so I really focused on that while I was mayor, and we're hoping to continue to grow those opportunities for young people. We know the schools are only, 6 hours a day. You need a lot of other community support, and we have the resources to be able to do that. We just need to have more people aware of the best way to connect.
Good to know. Good to know. I know I have a good friend here in Charlotte that helps with some after school program stuff for kids that are in foster care or uh, in a group home or something like that. He actually has after school programs for them specifically, which I think is a really great organization. So there's something out there. Charlotte has so much to offer when it comes to that kind of stuff. You just got to find it. Last final quick question. What makes you the most optimistic about Charlotte's future? Or what are you most optimistic about?
We have a lot of challenges. As I mentioned, income inequality is one. We have decades of racial segregation, which we're still trying to overcome, some of the lasting health impacts around redlining that happen in our city. So we've got some challenges. We have, as you said, growth. We got people moving here from all over and having a hard time with our housing keeping up and our services keeping up, and we're getting more congestion, that sort of thing. But we are a resilient people. And I know that, for instance, after Hurricane Hugo in 1989, people came out people didn't have electricity for two weeks. And so they had group barbecues. They'd like pull out their gas grill and all the meat before it went bad, sit there and have neighborhood cookouts trying to make it through until the electricity came back on. When there is a challenge, I know when the George Floyd murder happened, people came together, they came to the street, they supported each other, they said, what can we do to make Charlotte more inclusive? What can we do to get past this racial divide? There's a whole series of events that happened since that. Charlotte's resilient. And when push comes to shove, people step up. They do feel like they're a community and they're working to build toward a future that's better for our kids and grandkids in every part of our city. That's what gives me hope.
I love that. I think if we could just have that motivation and drive when there's not a disaster, we would be saved. We would be a perfect, we would just be great. Like our country as a whole seems to come together whenever we have disasters. And it's sad that it takes a disaster sometimes to wake people up. But that's a normal human thing, I think, is a lot of times we just have to have something drastic happen to wake us up, But I do love that about Charlotte. I think we always come together very well when we have issues like that. And so I loved having you on. I think you've definitely shared a lot of amazing information. So I want to thank you for coming on, offering your perspective. Your leadership in Charlotte has been amazing for us. And I know a lot of people, we haven't seen you in office in a long time or been many years, but you're still very active. I know you're on a lot of committees and I see you all over the place whenever I'm out at different events and things. So keep going strong, keep doing that. You're a beacon of light for us. And we definitely appreciate everything you're doing. To our listeners, of course. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. Definitely come back on our next episode. We will be talking to Faith Penny, who is an interior design specialist. Please subscribe to our podcast and share it to others that might value it. And then stay tuned. There's a few-minute song right after this about Mayor Roberts and what she's done for our city that was made through AI. Enjoy.
She took the ride, building bridges where walls once stood. Jennifer Roberts doing all she could. From the boardroom to government halls, breaking barriers and smashing walls. The city glowed with a gentle spark. Jennifer Roberts doing all she could. From the boardroom to government halls, breaking barriers and smashing walls. The city glowed with a gentle spark, turning shadows into a brighter arc. Jennifer Roberts making it new. Charlotte's standing taller, it's all thanks to you. Through the storms and through the fights, you painted this city with radiant lights. Jennifer Roberts making it new. Charlotte's standing taller, it's all thanks to you. Through the storms and through the fights, you painted this city with radiant lights. No suit too stiff, no fight too hard. Her vision rode a brand new car. With every step she paved the way for a stronger tomorrow and a better today. Diplomat, leader, a relentless heart, changing the world, one bold restart. She dreamed bigger when some felt small. Jennifer Roberts answering the call. Jennifer Roberts making it new. Charlotte's standing taller, it's all thanks to you. Through the storms and through the fights, you painted this city with radiant lights.